Try my barbecue bacon cheeseburger combo with sweet or spicy barbecue sauce topped with bacon and onion rings, plus fries and a drink for just $4.99.
Jack, I love you.
Okay. Only a Jack in the Box. Small fries and small drink. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary.
Now, the 3 Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the 3 Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks to Rich McFadden for filling in for me while I was on vacation over the past week. We have good, and probably bad/crazy martinis for conservatives today. The first two dealing with the big political news of the day, and it really is the big political news also of Tuesday night down in Georgia's 6th Congressional District. Jim, let me have you hop with me in the Wayback Machine, and all our listeners, of course, can join us too. This is back in April when Jon Ossoff came oh so close to avoiding a runoff and winning an outright majority in the jungle primary. He fell just short. At the time he made this particular statement, he didn't know for sure that he was going to have to face a runoff. But listen to his depiction of his becoming the top vote getter in the first round of this primary.
We may not know the outcome for some time. But let me tell you this. There is no doubt that this is already a victory for the ages.
The ages is not as long as it used to be, apparently, Jim. Fast forward to last night. Karen Handel, former Secretary of State in Georgia. Tight race. Ossoff had been ahead in some cases by very little, in some cases outside the margin of error. For much of the runoff campaign, you and Rich talked yesterday about how it looked like Handel was actually surging towards the end. In the end, she was surging. She did win. She won more comfortably than pretty much anybody expected. And now this was the response by Jon Ossoff on Tuesday night.
And we showed the world that in places where no one thought it was even possible to fight, we could fight. We showed them what courage and kindness and humility are capable of.
Courage, kindness, and humility are all good, Jim, but it also shows that what you can do with $30 million, most of it in outside money, $5 million from the DCCC, $734,000 from Planned Parenthood, and all sorts of other groups pouring in, MoveOn.org and so forth. So in the end, this was the Democrats' great hope. This was going to be the national referendum on Trump. Jon Ossoff was going to be the model for every Democratic congressional candidate next year. And in the end, it's a house of flaming ruins.
Look, it is a moral victory for the ages. Greg, the really important thing is I understand the Vegas line was about 7 points. So he beat the point spread, and that's what counts. If you put the money down in Vegas, Handel did not cover the spread. So that's what really counts. Yay! No, it doesn't. And look, yes, can you overstate the importance of special election, open seat races? Yes. Does this guarantee the Democrats are not going to take the House in 2018? No. But look, the Democrats, you don't spend, $31 million on a seat if you don't think you have a good chance of winning. And, based on the initial round of voting, based on the financial advantages they had, based on how divided Republicans were in that first round, Ossoff, and they were making fun of him, was generally considered to be a pretty good candidate for this district. Yes, he didn't live in it. Yes, he looks like he's not old enough to buy beer. But all in all, he's got a decent resume, and he generally didn't make any mistakes in the debates and on the trail and things like that. And the Democrats thought they had a really good shot. And maybe they didn't. And I think the reason this should really have Republicans a little spring in their step this morning. Some are saying, we shouldn't make too much of this. Look, this was, if not the prototypical district, this was the kind of district Democrats thought the road back to a House majority was built upon. That it was suburban, that it was Republican-leaning, but not heavily Republican-leaning, and definitely not a Trump district. Wealthy or somewhat wealthy, middle-class, white-collar, white, suburban, fiscally conservative. A couple of weeks ago, I talked to Ralph Reed, who talked about, yes, there are some mega churches in there, and they were going to be active, but it was not, the demographics were changing. It was getting more diverse. It was not a reliable Republican seat, particularly in these types of circumstances, like an open seat race. And they didn't do it. And they had, a giant financial advantage, and they had a pretty decent, they had all this stuff going for them, and they couldn't do it. So does this mean that they won't win the House? No, but they have to win these sorts of races to win back the House. And Ossoff pretty much did the exact Democratic playbook that had worked very well for them in 2006. He doesn't have a long voting record. He doesn't have a lot of votes where you can go through and say, he voted to raise taxes 487 times. He was this generic blank slate who talked like a centrist, if not a conservative, kept hammering home the message of trying to eliminate government waste. Because, Greg, when I think of the Democrats, I think of eliminating government waste, right?
Right.
He said he did not believe in socialized medicine and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, he fell short. And so if this didn't work here, I don't know if you knock off a Barbara Comstock in Northern Virginia this way. I don't know if you do so well in those suburban districts in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and all those places that the Democrats thought they could win pretty well. This was, the way they won in 2006 was to nominate people who were not, lifelong legislators who had a lot of votes that had been controversial and had a record you could attack. They were generic, sensible. I'm not like those Democrats over there, the Heath Schulers of the world, the Jim Webbs of the world. If that's not working in this circumstance, then the entire game plan for Democrats for winning back the House in 2018 looks a little shakier. And Democrats have good reason to wonder, look, not winning Kansas and Pompeo's seat. Okay, look, you didn't have a good chance at that. Not winning Montana at large. They talked themselves into thinking they had a good shot. Didn't work out there. They didn't really think they had a good shot at South Carolina. That one was within 4, but the turnout was super, super low. And now there's this one. So I guess it's on to Virginia and beating Ed Gillespie. If you're a Democrat, you got to wonder, when do you stop winning moral victories and start winning actual victories?
Yeah. What's the line? You know what I call a bad win? A win. And just watching Jon Ossoff last night, two things struck me. First of all, a lot of the generic we're all bigger than current politics and so forth seemed like it was pretty much carbon copy Obama rhetoric from about 2008. But my favorite moment was when he said, we decided not to divide people in this district. And then he talked about how the women in particular decided not to divide. So he
Look. We did that one side of this Martini, the wailing and lamentation of the Democrats. Maybe we can talk about the upside for the Republicans.
Right.
You know what I can say about Karen Handel, Greg?
What's that?
Nevertheless, she persisted. Come on, ladies. Why aren't all the women's groups and the feminist groups and the Emily's List and wait? I know she's adamantly anti-abortion, but come on, ladies, you should be happy a woman has been elected to Congress. Last night at their victory party, she was credited of being the first woman elected to Congress. She's the first Republican woman elected to Congress. But let's give Handel credit. This was not a united party coming out of that first round of voting.
No.
Donald Trump is clearly not at his apex of polling popularity. This was obviously, you could tell from her rhetoric on the trail that she was not exactly completely distancing herself from Trump, but certainly not completely embracing Trump either. I think what's worth noting here is that, look, looking at how Tom Price won, looking at how Mitt Romney won here, looking at how John McCain won here, this is a district that prefers what we could call traditional Republicans, conservative Republicans, non-Trump Republicans. Donald Trump is different from your average Republican. So if the Democrat plan is to win in districts that generally prefer conservative Republicans, unless the Republicans suddenly have a really Trumpified identity and they become Trump clones, the Republicans should be okay in most of these seats. And if this should be giving, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee really should not have gotten any sleep last night.
I love the Democratic divide, and it's going public, Jim, in a number of different ways here. That's been talked about a lot, but Seth Moulton, the congressman up from Massachusetts, tweeting, Ossoff race better be a wake-up call for Democrats. Business as usual isn't working. Time to stop rehashing 2016 and talk about the future. We need a genuinely new message, a serious jobs plan that reaches all Americans, and a bigger tent, not a smaller one. Focus on the future. And then you got kind of a left-wing feminist, Joe Filipovich, saying, at what point is this not a failure of Democrats, but toxic, vindictive voters willing to elect hateful bigots? At some point, we have to be willing to say that, yes, lots of conservative voters are hateful and willing to embrace bigots. And so she's saying, why even bother? Democrats should convince our base, people of color and women, to turn out, cater to them. So good times in the Democratic Party.
Look, I was going to say, if you're Karen Handel, that's front and center in your reelection campaign, right? I mean, the Democrats and their allies hate you. They hate you. They think the only reason you could possibly vote against them is they're a bigot. They call you names. If you don't if you don't vote the way they want, they will demonize you, and you don't deserve that. And that's I think a very basic winning message here. You mentioned the example of some Democrats saying they got to broaden their message, change their message. Joe Cunningham is a Democratic candidate in the 1st District of South Carolina. It's a district you and I are familiar with. It includes the Low Country and Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. He's been running against Mark Sanford. Cunningham writes today, the Democratic Party needs new leadership now. If elected, I will not vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. Time to move forward and win again. So I think a really interesting question is going to be, Greg, so how much does the DCCC want to help out Joe Cunningham?
Probably not very much.
I mean, if nothing, Sanford could say, Sanford could say, oh, good, I'm glad he recognizes that Nancy Pelosi is a terrible leader and we should not follow her, which is going to, be an interesting message for him to take. It's a fairly Republican-leaning district. Greg, you and I can remember in the open seat when they redrew the lines and Tim Scott was named to be senator, everybody thought the Democrats thought they were going to beat Mark Sanford then, too. And this was after, hiking the Argentinian mistress and hiking the our Appalachian Trail and all that. And he won by about 9 points. Whatever else you want to say about Mark Sanford, he goes out and he hustles for votes. And he, generally is a pretty hardworking campaigner. We'll get some polling. We'll get some more numbers on this so far. But I think for a lot of Democrats are having flashbacks to election night 2016 because they really thought they were going to win this one. And now all of a sudden they're finding out they've been walking around convinced they're a lot more popular than they really are.
It's a lovely promise Mr. Cunningham is making. Nancy Pelosi isn't very good at inspiring and encouraging and helping other candidates win elections, but she's really good at making the Democrats in Congress vote for her. So even if this guy goes there and doesn't, she's still going to have the vast majority of the Democratic conference, assuming she still wants the job, which if she has a pulse, she will. All right, on to the bad/crazy martini now, Jim, and let's talk about Obama administration figure we're blissfully glad to see off the public stage, but apparently he's now back. This is Fox News. Eric Holder, the Obama-era attorney general who delighted in sparring with congressional Republicans and has since joined the anti-Trump resistance, said in an interview he's planning to become more visible and reportedly could be considering a 2020 presidential run. Yahoo News reported that Holder is mulling a bid and stepping up his public appearances. Quote, up to now, I've been more behind the scenes, he told Yahoo News, but that's about to change. I have a certain status as the former attorney general, so I want to use whatever skills I have, whatever notoriety I have to be effective in opposing things that are, at the end of the day, just bad for the country. He says now is the time to be more visible. Jim, I always love seeing phraseology that says reportedly could be considering, because that could pretty much mean anybody. But Eric Holder's back in the news, and we're going to be hearing a lot more from him. I'm sure that makes your heart happy.
Oh, Greg, haven't we had enough sequels to Fast and Furious? I have been sitting on that line all day waiting to use it today. So this will be the first Democratic presidential candidate who's been held in contempt of Congress. Am I right on that?
Yes.
He's going to say he's going to be tough on the rich, even though he pardoned Mark Rich.
Right.
Or recommended the pardon of Mark Rich. Okay, just making sure. Boy, I'm just, you want to talk, first of all, no problems with getting out the Republican vote in 2020 if Holder is the nominee. If I were the Democrats, I'd actually be really nervous about this because on the one, he's not exactly a whirling dervish of raw political charisma, but he will be seen as an Obama, closely tied to Obama for obvious reasons. Democrats, by and large, still have very warm, fuzzy feelings towards Barack Obama, and they might see nominating Eric Holder as the next best thing to a third Obama term. I think if Eric Holder jumps in, you cannot rule him out as a candidate. I also don't think that this is a natural, smooth choice for a party that wants to look forward. And I don't think this is, we'll see what he's like once he gets out, shaking hands in Iowa and eating corn dogs and meeting people, shaking hands in diners up in New Hampshire or something like that. Eric Holder strikes me as a guy who'd be an awkward transition to the daily life of a presidential candidate. I think you could see a lot of, can I just eat my waffle type moments. But the irony is that he would, eat up a lot of oxygen, eat up a lot of attention that other Democratic candidates might want, including, if the rumor is Cory Booker wants to run. That Democratic stage for the presidential campaign in 2020 is probably going to be pretty, crowded as is. And Eric Holder was not somebody everybody considered. You really could end up, people were fuming about the Republicans having 17 candidates running at one point. It's not unthinkable. You can see the Democrats in another situation. So if I'm the Democrats, I want to narrow my field to no more than a half dozen as quickly as possible. And the idea of Holder jumping in eats up a lot of Obama donors really fast.
Cory Booker's at least 30 years too early to be running for the Democratic nomination. I mean, you've got Bernie, you've got Biden, you got Hillary possibly. Eric Holder, if he were to become president, would turn 70 the day after he'd be sworn in 2021. So he's kind of in the right demographic there. He's almost old enough to run for the Democratic nomination.
It is kind of like that remake of Cocoon they keep talking about.
Oh, let's hope that doesn't happen. And let's hope he's not in public as often as he seems to think he's going to be, because I kind of like him not being in public. Jim, good to be back. Good to talk to you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.
Jack's gonna crash your crane. Jack Box crashes hunger like no one else can, by driving through a wall in a passenger van. So if you're craving pancakes morning or night, Jack's gonna crash that craving and make it all right.
Here, try my jumbo breakfast platter with scrambled eggs, 8 mini pancakes, hash brown, and bacon or sausage for just $2.99.
$2.99? Shut the front door.
Of the van or only a Jack in the Box? Limited time only at participating restaurants.
It happens every summer. Stargazers delight in the opportunity to view constellations that can't be seen in winter, while car lovers delight in the opportunity to own one of our stars. At the Mercedes-Benz Summer Event, you can get the Mercedes-Benz of your dreams for less than you thought possible, like the supremely intelligent E-Class sedan or the awe-inspiring GLC. Don't miss this once-in-a-summertime opportunity. Hurry in to our summer event. Visit MBUSA.com to learn more. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.